And can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, so I found that really interesting, and at a couple points, and at the end, you sort of got to my question, but I want you to expand a little bit. What do we know about? You talked about the end of the Bronze Age, and I remember that there was a wonderful quote from the oil minister of Saudi Arabia many years ago. The Stone Age didn't end with the end of because they ran out of stones, right? And the oil age won't end because we're going to run out of oil. What do we know about really the kind of unwinding of civilizations? I remember a talk, about a year or so ago about the Silk Road, and the researcher had found this ancient village that was part of that infrastructure, not far from where the Chinese are building the port in the middle of Kazakhstan, right? What do we know about that ending, the unwinding part of that?
Well, we face severe epistemic problems there because often you don't have many written accounts that coincide with the end of such a society, especially at a lower technological level of development. You might just lose literacy, as was the case in the Mycenaean Greek example. Causality is also difficult always to tease out. These are interdependent systems, and there are many different hypotheses as to what exactly is the linchpin. Is the linchpin political? Something like their ability to militarily secure the trade routes. Is it perhaps is the linchpin something more economical, or is it something like knowledge and so on? I think the things we can solidly know are basically things that have left behind material artifacts. I think this is why I brought up the atmospheric lead pollution. It seems pretty strong arguments that that's a correlate. We know how that figure changed over time. We also know whether there are bronze artifacts lying around in various parts of the Eastern Mediterranean. As we know, whether there's pottery lying around, and we can use those proxies to at least gauge what coincides. Now, teasing apart the causality, there's an interesting question here. I think this is, almost more not history, but an integration of history and sociology, where I think a lot of the problems that perhaps arise out of modern approaches to economics or political science or philosophy of science rest in the fact that they disregard the vast majority of the data set we have to learn from. Can you imagine a discipline of physics where we only admit the experiments done in the last 10 years? That would be a very strange kind of physics. But in political science and economics and so on, we often limit results to the last 70 years or the last 100 years. There are definitely phenomena that are not going to show up in that short of a time period.
So, is there a discipline of collapse in here somewhere? How this all kind of unwinds? It seems to me that that's...
Jared Diamond seems to be the only one.
Yes. He wrote the book Collapse. Yes. Yeah, it feels to me there's something very big in that question of how things actually unwind. T.S. Eliot captured it very well, not with a bang, but with a whimper. More civilizations, I think, end with a whimper than with a bang. That's probably right?
I think that's quite right, at least for several examples. The Bronze Age one is actually a counterexample. It seems to end quite quickly, 40 to 50 years. The Roman Empire, though, if you want to think about the fall of the Roman Empire, it's not literally barbarians at the gates burning things down. It's, imagine GDP is shrinking every year for 0.5% for 100 years.
Right.
At the end, you're vastly poorer. The populations of most large Roman cities, through excavation, we can do estimates of their population. There's a wonderful paper on estimating the change in the population of Rome itself that perhaps I'll link or email to people. We can tell that the population of those cities is shrinking slowly. We can tell that they're getting poorer through the various correlates that we have, and it's imperceptible. When we read the letters of the people, you have, when we read Roman letters, you have poets in the 4th century basically saying, Rome is fine, things are okay, the roads are a little unsafe lately, and I'll visit you in the spring. That's how the literate class, the elite class, the privileged class, because the people who were consuming literature were also the senatorial class and the administrative class. So they do not know on an institutional level what's happening to them. And that's why I said that, the sort of the kind of intellectual dark age question is very interesting to me because, if all the intellectuals are gone, who knows that it's an intellectual dark age? Or if all the technologists are gone, who knows it's a technological dark age? Right? I think it takes an expert to evaluate the actual state of a relevant technology. I know that whenever I'm working with someone and there's a technological question, the first thing I do is start hunting down and evaluating experts and ask them for their opinion. Because in a 6-month case study, as I might undertake, I'm never going to master the technology. I'm never going to acquire the tacit knowledge that's not even explicated. So I have to rely on someone else. I'm epistemically limited in that way.